My wife told my entire family I lacked ambition, was too basic and boring, and then left me for her boss who had promised her a business partnership. I used my boring accountant skills to document everything and watched her new life completely fall apart when he got arrested for fraud. For context, I, 35M, work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, and my wife, Pamela, 32F, works as a marketing coordinator at a tech startup. I make decent money, around $75K a year, which is enough for our lifestyle, but Pamela always wanted more. A little background about Pamela. We have been married for 6 years. When we first met, she was working part-time at a retail store while finishing her degree. I helped her through college, paid for her books, and even covered her rent a few times when she was short. After graduation, I helped her get interviews through my professional network. She landed the marketing job about 3 years ago. The problem started about 18 months ago. Pamela began working late more often. She started buying expensive clothes and said her company had a relaxed dress code. She bought a new iPhone, designer handbags, and started getting her nails done every 2 weeks. When I asked about the expenses, she said her boss Justin, 45M, was mentoring her and that looking professional was important for her career. Justin owns the startup where she works. He drives a BMW, wears expensive suits, and Pamela talked about him constantly. She mentioned his vacation photos from Europe, his downtown condo, and how successful he was. I noticed she started comparing everything I did to what Justin would do. If I suggested a restaurant, she would mention Justin took his clients to better places. If I bought her flowers, she said Justin sent elaborate arrangements to his business partners. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago at my parents' anniversary dinner. My whole family was there, my parents, my sister Martha, 29F, my brother-in-law Ford, 31M, and their 2 kids. We were at my parents' house, and everyone was having a good time. My dad asked me about work, and I mentioned that our firm was expanding and I might get promoted to senior accountant. Pamela interrupted me and said I was being too optimistic. She said I had been in the same position for 3 years and that real successful people take charge of their careers. My mom tried to change the subject, but Pamela kept going. She said Justin had built his company from nothing and that I lacked ambition. Ford tried to defend me and said accounting was a stable career. Pamela laughed and said stability was just another word for being afraid to take risks. She said Justin told her that men who settle for average jobs end up with average lives. My sister looked uncomfortable, and my parents just stared at their plates. Then Pamela said something that made everyone go quiet. She said Justin had offered her a promotion to marketing manager, and that successful women needed successful partners. She looked directly at me and said maybe it was time for her to upgrade more than just her job title. My mother gasped, and my father told Pamela that was enough. I stood up and said I was going home. Pamela followed me outside and started yelling that I was embarrassing her by leaving. She said my family would think she was the problem when really I was the one holding her back. She said Justin made more in a month than I made in 6 months, and that she deserved better than a boring accountant who would never amount to anything. I got in my car and drove away. Pamela rode home with my sister later that night. When she came home, she acted like nothing happened. She said I was being too sensitive and that she was just trying to motivate me to do better. The next few days were tense. Pamela went to work early and came home late. She barely spoke to me except to ask about practical things like who was paying which bills. I noticed she was texting constantly and hiding her phone screen when I walked by. Last Tuesday, I left work early because I had finished a big project and my boss told me to take the afternoon off. I got home around 2 p.m. and saw a red BMW in our driveway that I didn't recognize. I parked on the street and walked around to the back of the house. Through our bedroom window, I could see Pamela packing suitcases. She was being very methodical about it, going through her jewelry box and taking specific items. I watched her pack the pearl necklace I gave her for our anniversary, the gold watch I bought for her birthday last year, and even the diamond earrings I gave her when she got her job. I waited outside for about 10 minutes, then walked through the front door. Pamela was in the living room, putting photo albums into a box. She looked startled when she saw me, but then put on a fake smile and said she was just organizing our things. I asked her whose car was in the driveway. She said it belonged to Justin and that he had given her a ride home because her car was in the shop. I asked why she was packing if her car was broken. She stopped pretending and said she was leaving me. Pamela said she had been seeing Justin for 4 months and that he had offered her a position as his business partner. She said he was going to help her start her own marketing consulting firm. She said Justin understood her ambitions in a way I never could. I asked about the jewelry and gifts she was packing. She said those things were hers now and that she had earned them by putting up with me for 6 years. She said Justin had already bought her better jewelry anyway, and that the watch I gave her looked cheap compared to his Rolex collection. Pamela said Justin was a real man who knew how to treat a woman. She said he took her to expensive restaurants, bought her designer clothes, and showed her what success actually looked like. She said I was content with mediocrity and that she needed someone who matched her energy. Then she told me she had transferred most of our joint savings account to her personal account that morning. She said I could keep what was left, which was about $800. She said that should be enough for groceries until I figured out my next steps. I looked at her packing boxes and said she had planned this very carefully. She said Justin had been helping her organize the logistics for 2 weeks. She said Justin owned multiple properties and that she would be moving into his downtown condo. I told Pamela she seemed to have everything figured out. She said Justin was picking her up in 20 minutes and that I should not try to contact her because she needed space to start her new life. She said Justin's lawyer had already prepared separation papers and that she would have them sent to me. I told her I understood and that I hoped things worked out the way she planned. She looked surprised that I was not arguing or begging her to stay. She said she expected me to be more upset. I said I was not surprised because her behavior had been obvious for months. I told her I had been keeping detailed records of our finances, her work schedule, and her communications. I said I always kept copies of bank statements, receipts, and important documents because that was just how I managed our household. Pamela asked what I meant by records. I told her I had documentation of every unusual expense, every late night at work, and every story she had told me about Justin. I said I had screenshots of her social media posts and copies of text messages she had left open on our shared iPad. She said I was being paranoid and that keeping records of her activities was controlling behavior. I said I was not trying to control anything, just being thorough like I am with everything else. I said accountability was important in marriage, just like it was in business. Pamela said Justin told her that insecure men often try to gather evidence when they sense their women are outgrowing them. I said that was interesting advice from someone who was helping a married woman plan her exit strategy while she was still living with her husband. She said Justin and she had not done anything wrong because their relationship was primarily professional. I said that was fine, and that my records would show exactly what kind of relationship they had and when it started. Pamela picked up her suitcases and said she was done with this conversation. She said Justin was successful enough to handle any complications I might try to create. She said I should focus on improving myself instead of trying to bring down people who were doing better than me. I held the door open for her and said I hoped her new business venture worked out. She walked to the BMW, and Justin got out to help with her bags. He looked at me standing in the doorway but did not say anything. He was wearing an expensive-looking suit and gold watch. After they drove away, I went inside and checked what she had taken. Besides the jewelry and gifts, she had taken all her clothes, her laptop, and some of our shared household items like the good cookware and our wedding china. I spent the evening going through my files and organizing everything I had documented over the past year. I had bank statements showing her unusual spending patterns, screenshots of her work schedule changes, and photos of her new expensive items that I had taken for insurance purposes. My neighbor Carol, 67F, knocked on my door around 8 p.m. She said she had seen the BMW and Pamela leaving with suitcases. She asked if everything was okay. I told her Pamela had moved out and that we were getting separated. Carol said she had been wondering about the red car that had been parking in our driveway on weekdays when I was at work. She said she had seen it there at least 6 or 7 times over the past month. She said she had photos on her phone because she thought it might be someone casing houses in the neighborhood. I asked if I could see the photos. Carol showed me pictures of Justin's BMW parked in our driveway on different days, always during work hours. Some of the photos had timestamps showing he was there for 2 or 3 hours at a time. Carol said she would be happy to share the photos if I needed them for anything. She said she had been married for 43 years before her husband passed, and that she could recognize when marriages were having problems. I thanked Carol and went back inside. I spent the rest of the evening organizing all my documentation and creating a timeline of events. I had more evidence than I initially realized, including credit card statements showing expensive restaurant charges and hotel bills that Pamela had hidden from me. I am not sure what happens next, but I am glad I kept detailed records of everything. Pamela always said I was too careful about documentation, but now I think my thoroughness might be helpful. The money she took from our joint account was most of our emergency fund, but I have other savings that she does not know about. I have been putting money into a separate account for 3 years because I wanted to surprise her with a down payment on a house. Now I'm glad I kept that money separate. I know Pamela thinks she has upgraded to a better situation, but I have questions about how sustainable Justin's lifestyle really is. Some of the business expenses I saw on our credit card seem questionable, and I am curious about whether his company is as successful as he claims. I am not planning to do anything dramatic or confrontational. I just want to document everything properly and let the situation unfold naturally. Pamela made her choice, and now she will have to live with the consequences of her decisions. Update 1: I wanted to update everyone on what has happened since Pamela moved out. Some things have developed that I did not expect, and the situation has become more complicated. First, let me address the financial situation. Pamela emptied our joint checking account, which had about $12,000 in it. She also used our joint credit card to make several large purchases in the days before she left, including a $3,000 designer handbag and $1,500 worth of clothes. I found the receipts in our mail after she moved out. I contacted our bank and credit card company to report the unauthorized spending. Since we were still legally married when she made these purchases, they said it was a civil matter that would need to be resolved through divorce proceedings. However, they did flag the accounts to prevent additional unauthorized access. The bank also informed me that large withdrawals from joint accounts during separation can be problematic in divorce court, especially if one spouse empties the account without the other's knowledge. They suggested I document everything and provided me with detailed transaction records. My lawyer said Pamela's financial actions could work in my favor during divorce proceedings. He said judges typically do not look favorably on spouses who drain joint accounts and rack up debt before abandoning the marriage. Now for the more interesting developments. My sister Martha called me 5 days after Pamela left. She said Pamela had been posting photos on Instagram of her new lifestyle with Justin. The photos showed expensive restaurants, designer shopping bags, and the downtown condo Pamela had moved into. Martha said the posts looked impressive, but she noticed something odd. Pamela was tagging Justin in the photos, but his Instagram account only had about 50 followers and no posts of his own. Martha said most successful business owners have more established social media presence, especially in tech. Martha also said Pamela had been calling our mother, trying to explain why she left. Pamela told my mother that I had been financially controlling and that Justin was helping her gain independence. My mother asked Pamela about the specific ways I had been controlling, and Pamela could not give clear examples. My mother told Pamela that emptying joint bank accounts seemed more controlling than anything I had ever done. Pamela got upset and said my family was taking my side without understanding the situation. She said Justin had explained that families often enable mediocre men by making excuses for their failures. The conversation between Pamela and my mother ended badly. My mother said Pamela sounded like she was repeating someone else's opinions rather than expressing her own thoughts. She said Pamela had never talked about me being controlling during our 6 years of marriage. Meanwhile, I have been learning more about Justin and his business. I did some research online and found that his startup has only existed for 2 years. The company website looks professional, but there are very few details about their actual clients or services. I also discovered that Justin has been through 3 business partnerships in the past 5 years. Each partnership ended with legal disputes over money and contracts. One of his former partners filed a lawsuit claiming Justin misrepresented company finances and used business funds for personal expenses. The lawsuit was settled out of court, but the public records show Justin's previous startup filed for bankruptcy 18 months ago. He started his current company immediately afterward, which explains why it is so new. I found this information through basic online searches, which makes me wonder why Pamela did not research Justin's background before making such a big decision. She always said she was good at evaluating business opportunities, but she seems to have skipped basic due diligence on her new partner. Carol, my neighbor, has continued to be helpful. She told me that Justin's BMW has been parked in our old driveway several times since Pamela moved out. She said Pamela comes by during work hours to collect mail and check on things. Carol said Pamela looks stressed during these visits. She said Pamela was always very put together before, but now she looks tired and her clothes seem less expensive than the designer outfits she was wearing a few months ago. Last week, Carol saw Pamela arguing with someone on the phone while standing in our driveway. Carol said Pamela was gesturing angrily and seemed upset about money. She said she heard Pamela say something about credit cards being declined and needing more time to figure things out. I have not had any direct contact with Pamela since she moved out. She sent me an email asking for the rest of her belongings, and I packed everything up and left it on the porch for her to collect. I made sure to document what items I returned in case there are questions later. Pamela also sent me a text asking if I would consider paying for half of her car repairs. She said her car had major engine problems and that the repair costs were higher than expected. I did not respond to the text. My lawyer advised me not to communicate with Pamela directly except through official channels. He said any financial assistance I provided could complicate divorce proceedings and might be seen as acceptance of responsibility for her debts. The divorce papers were filed 2 weeks ago. Pamela is asking for half of all marital assets, including my separate savings account that she recently discovered. She is also asking me to pay her legal fees and temporary support while she establishes her new business. My lawyer said Pamela's requests are unrealistic given that she emptied our joint account and accumulated debt before leaving. He said her actions show she was planning her departure for months while continuing to spend marital money on personal items. I have been focusing on work and maintaining my normal routine. My boss offered me the senior accountant promotion that Pamela said I would never get. The promotion comes with a $15,000 raise and better benefits. I accepted the promotion and will start the new position next month. The additional income will help cover my legal expenses and make up for the money Pamela took from our joint account. Several of my coworkers have asked about Pamela because she used to attend company events with me. I have been honest that we are getting divorced, but I have not shared details about her affair or financial behavior. I figure the truth will speak for itself without me having to explain everything. The most surprising development happened yesterday. Martha received a friend request on Facebook from Justin. Martha accepted it to see what he might post, but his Facebook page is almost empty. He has no friends, no posts, and very little personal information. Martha said it seemed like Justin was trying to research our family, possibly to gather information about me or my finances. She said his timing was suspicious because Pamela had just been asking my mother questions about my work and savings. I am starting to think Justin and Pamela's relationship might be more transactional than romantic. If Justin is having financial problems with his business, Pamela's marketing skills and social connections might be valuable to him in ways that have nothing to do with love. Pamela always said Justin was successful, but successful people usually do not need to partner with married employees or research their families on social media. The whole situation is starting to look less like a romantic upgrade and more like a desperate business arrangement. I am continuing to document everything and letting my lawyer handle the legal aspects. Pamela made her choice based on what she thought Justin could offer her, and now she will have to deal with the reality of that decision. Update 2: The situation has taken several unexpected turns, and I think Pamela is starting to realize that her new life might not be what she expected. 3 weeks ago, I received a call from my credit card company about suspicious activity on our joint card. Even though I had cancelled Pamela's access, someone had been trying to use the card number for online purchases. The charges were being declined because I had put a fraud alert on the account. The credit card company traced the attempted charges to a computer at Justin's business address. They said someone had been trying to make purchases for office supplies, software subscriptions, and even restaurant deliveries using our old joint account information. I filed a fraud report and provided all the documentation to my lawyer. He said this could be considered identity theft or credit card fraud, depending on whether Pamela gave Justin our account information or if he obtained it some other way. My lawyer contacted Justin's business directly and sent a cease and desist letter regarding the unauthorized use of credit card information. He said this type of financial misconduct could affect Pamela's divorce settlement and might even result in criminal charges. The credit card activity stopped immediately after my lawyer's letter was sent. However, this incident made me realize that Justin might not be as financially stable as Pamela believed. Last week, Martha called me with more information about Justin's background. She said she had been researching his business after the Facebook friend request incident. Martha works in digital marketing, so she knows how to find information about companies and their finances. Martha discovered that Justin's current startup has never filed any tax returns or business registration documents. She said legitimate businesses are required to file these documents, and the absence of paperwork suggests the company might not actually be operating as a real business. Martha also found that Justin has been evicted from 3 different office spaces in the past 18 months for non-payment of rent. His current office address is listed as a shared workspace that charges monthly fees, not a permanent business location. Most concerning, Martha found court records showing Justin owes over $80,000 in back taxes and penalties to the IRS. The tax lien was filed 6 months ago, which means Justin's financial problems existed long before he started his relationship with Pamela. Martha said these findings suggest Justin might have been looking for someone to help support him financially rather than someone to support. She said Pamela's timing as a potential business partner probably had more to do with Justin's tax problems than with any romantic connection. I shared Martha's research with my lawyer, who said this information could be relevant to my divorce case. If Pamela knew about Justin's financial situation and still chose to drain our joint account to support him, it could affect how the court views her financial decisions. Meanwhile, Carol has been keeping me updated on Pamela's visits to our old house. She said Pamela has been coming by more frequently, usually looking upset and often talking loudly on the phone. Carol said she overheard Pamela arguing with someone about money last Tuesday. She said Pamela was saying things like needing more time and promising that things would work out soon. Carol said Pamela seemed to be trying to reassure whoever she was talking to. 2 days later, Carol saw Pamela and Justin at the house together. She said they were both going through our mailbox and looking at documents. Carol said Justin seemed agitated and kept checking his phone while Pamela sorted through papers. Carol took photos of him going through the mail because she thought it might be illegal. I checked with my lawyer, who said accessing someone else's mail without permission is a federal crime. He suggested I contact the Postal Service and file a complaint. I filed the mail theft complaint and changed my address officially so all important mail would go to my new apartment. I also installed a security camera at the old house to document any additional trespassing or mail theft. The most dramatic development happened 5 days ago. I received a text from Pamela asking if we could meet to discuss our divorce settlement. She said she wanted to work things out without involving lawyers and that she had been thinking about our situation. I forwarded the text to my lawyer, who advised me not to meet with Pamela alone. He said any discussions about divorce should go through official channels to avoid complications or accusations later. Pamela texted again the next day, saying she needed to talk to me urgently about Justin. She said she had learned some things that made her reconsider her decisions, and that she might have made a mistake. I did not respond to the text, but I saved it as documentation. My lawyer said Pamela's change in attitude was probably related to her discovery of Justin's real financial situation. Yesterday, Martha called me with the most interesting update yet. She said Pamela had contacted our mother and asked if she could come to dinner this Sunday. Pamela told my mother that she missed our family and wanted to explain what had really been happening. My mother asked Pamela about Justin and whether he would be joining her for dinner. Pamela said Justin was busy with work and would not be coming. She said she needed to talk to family without any outside influences. My mother agreed to have Pamela over for dinner, but she called me first to let me know. She said Pamela sounded different on the phone, less confident and more uncertain than she had been when she first left. My mother asked if I wanted to be there when Pamela came for dinner. I told her I would prefer not to be there because it might make the conversation more complicated. I said Pamela needed to figure out her situation without involving me in her decision-making process. My mother said she understood and that she would listen to what Pamela had to say. She said she was curious about what Pamela had learned about Justin and whether it matched the research Martha had done. I am planning to stay focused on my work and my new apartment while Pamela figures out her next steps. Her recent attempts to contact me suggest that her new life is not working out as planned, but that is not my problem to solve. My lawyer said the divorce should be finalized within the next 2 months. Pamela's financial misconduct and Justin's background issues have strengthened my position, and she will likely receive much less than she originally demanded. I have been putting my energy into positive changes instead of dwelling on Pamela's choices. My promotion is going well, I have been saving money, and I am enjoying the peace of living alone without constant criticism and drama. Update 3: It has been 2 months since my last update, and the situation has reached its conclusion. Pamela's new life completely fell apart, and the divorce is now finalized. The most significant development happened 6 weeks ago. Justin's business was investigated by the IRS for tax evasion and fraudulent business practices. The investigation was triggered by multiple complaints from former business partners and creditors who claimed Justin had misrepresented his company's finances. Federal agents seized Justin's office computers and financial records. They also froze his business and personal bank accounts pending the investigation. Justin was arrested and charged with tax evasion, wire fraud, and operating a fraudulent business scheme. It turned out that Justin's startup was essentially a fake company designed to attract investors and hide his personal debt. He had been taking money from investors while using business funds to pay for his personal lifestyle expenses. Pamela was not charged with any crimes because investigators determined she was also a victim of Justin's fraud. However, she lost all the money she had invested in his fake business, including the $12,000 she had taken from our joint account. The designer gifts Justin had given Pamela were purchased with stolen investor money. The BMW was leased under a false business name and was repossessed when Justin's accounts were frozen. The downtown condo was rented, not owned, and Justin had not paid rent in 3 months. Pamela found herself homeless and broke within a week of Justin's arrest. She had quit her job to work for Justin's company, so she had no income and no savings. She also owed thousands of dollars in credit card debt from trying to maintain her expensive lifestyle. My mother told me that Pamela came to the family dinner as planned, but she broke down crying and admitted that everything had been a mistake. She said Justin had convinced her that I was holding her back, but she realized he had been manipulating her to gain access to our money. Pamela told my mother that Justin had been pressuring her to get more money from me through the divorce settlement. He had been coaching her on what to demand and how to present her case to make it seem like I owed her financial support. Pamela said Justin had also been planning to use her marketing skills to promote his fake business to new investors. He had wanted her to reach out to my professional network and family friends to find people who might invest in his startup. My mother said Pamela seemed genuinely remorseful about her behavior and the things she had said to me and my family. Pamela acknowledged that she had been cruel and that Justin had encouraged her to burn bridges with people who actually cared about her. However, my mother also said Pamela asked whether there was any possibility of reconciling our marriage. My mother told Pamela that she would need to discuss that with me directly, but that I seemed to be doing well living independently. I never responded to Pamela's indirect request for reconciliation. My lawyer advised me to maintain no contact until the divorce was finalized to avoid any complications or accusations of coercion. The divorce was completed 3 weeks ago. Because of Pamela's financial misconduct and Justin's criminal activity, the court awarded me all marital assets except for Pamela's personal belongings. Pamela received no spousal support and was ordered to pay half of the legal fees. The court also ordered Pamela to repay the money she had taken from our joint account, plus interest and penalties. Since she has no income or assets, this debt will likely follow her for years unless she files for bankruptcy. Pamela's attempts to claim half of my separate savings were rejected because she could not prove the money was marital property. The court determined that my separate account was individual property since it was funded before our marriage and maintained separately throughout our relationship. After the divorce was finalized, Pamela contacted Martha and asked if she could get a message to me. Pamela wanted me to know that she understood she had made terrible decisions and that she regretted throwing away our marriage for someone who was using her. Martha told Pamela that I was not interested in revisiting the past and that I was focused on moving forward with my life. Martha said Pamela seemed to understand and that she did not push for additional contact. I have heard through my mother that Pamela moved back in with her parents and is looking for a new job. She lost her car because she could not make the payments, and she had to sell most of the expensive items Justin had given her to pay for basic living expenses. Pamela also had to deal with several collection agencies because Justin had used her name and credit information for some of his fraudulent business activities. She is working with a lawyer to clear her credit and establish that she was a victim of Justin's schemes. Meanwhile, my life has improved significantly. The promotion I received has led to additional opportunities at work, and I am being considered for a management position that would come with another substantial raise. I used some of my separate savings to buy a house in a better neighborhood. The house is smaller than the one Pamela and I shared, but it is in a great location and completely mine. I have been enjoying decorating it according to my own preferences without having to consider anyone else's opinions. Carol, my old neighbor, helped me move and has stayed in touch. She said the old house has been on the market for 2 months but is not sold yet. She said she thinks the drama of Pamela and Justin's situation affected the neighborhood's reputation. I have been dating someone new for the past month. Her name is Rachel, 29F, and she works as a nurse at the local hospital. We met through a hiking group, and she has no connection to my previous life with Pamela. Rachel knows about my divorce but is not interested in hearing details about my ex-wife's poor decisions. She said she prefers to focus on getting to know me as I am now rather than analyzing my past relationships. I have not seen or heard from Pamela directly since she moved out 8 months ago. Based on what my family has told me, she seems to have learned from her mistakes and is trying to rebuild her life in a more realistic way. Justin was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison in order to pay restitution to his victims. He will also face additional state charges related to identity theft and credit card fraud when his federal sentence is complete. The whole experience taught me that keeping detailed records and maintaining financial independence were wise decisions. If I had not documented Pamela's behavior and kept separate savings, the situation could have been much more devastating for me. I am glad Pamela's true character was revealed before we had children or accumulated more shared assets. Her willingness to abandon our marriage for someone she barely knew showed that she was not the partner I thought she was. I have no interest in reconciling with Pamela or maintaining any kind of relationship with her. She made her choices based on greed and status seeking, and she will have to live with the consequences of those decisions. My focus now is on building a better future with people who share my values and treat relationships with respect. Pamela can figure out her own path forward without any involvement from me. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I was dating a single dad whose daughter had cystic fibrosis. She was always the priority, leaving my kids feeling neglected. When I spoke up, he left us. I, 32F, have been dating Lucas, 35M, for about 2 years now, and I'm starting to wonder if our relationship is sustainable given our complicated family situations. We both have kids from previous relationships. I have twin boys, Ethan and Noah, 9M, and Lucas has a daughter, Phoebe, 11F, who has cystic fibrosis. I met Lucas at a local community center where I volunteer on weekends. He was there with Phoebe for a support group meeting, and we struck up a conversation while waiting for our respective events to start. There was an instant connection between us. He was charming, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. We exchanged numbers and started texting regularly. At first, I was hesitant to get involved with someone who had a child with such serious health needs. My own divorce had been finalized just a year earlier, and I was still adjusting to life as a single mom. My ex-husband had left us when the twins were only 3, claiming he wasn't ready for the responsibility of fatherhood. It had been a difficult few years, balancing work, childcare, and trying to heal from the betrayal. But Lucas was different. He was attentive and caring, not just to Phoebe but to my boys as well. On our third date, he surprised me by bringing age-appropriate books for Ethan and Noah, remembering that I had mentioned their love for reading. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. As we started spending more time together, I learned more about Phoebe's condition. Cystic fibrosis affects her lungs and digestive system, requiring daily medications, nebulizer treatments, and a strict dietary regimen. Lucas explained that Phoebe also needed to go to the hospital for a week every month for intensive treatment. Despite these challenges, Phoebe was a bright, cheerful girl who seemed to take her condition in stride. For the first few months, everything seemed great. Lucas was a welcome presence in our lives, and my boys really liked him. He would come over for dinner, help the boys with their homework, and even started teaching them how to play chess. It felt like we were becoming a real family. But as time went on, I started to notice how much Phoebe's condition affected our ability to do things together. Simple outings that I used to take for granted with my boys became complicated logistical challenges. A trip to the park had to be carefully timed around Phoebe's medication schedule. Movie nights were often interrupted by nebulizer treatments. Even dinner plans had to be flexible to accommodate Phoebe's dietary needs. Don't get me wrong, I understood that Phoebe's health was important. But I started to feel like my kids were always getting the short end of the stick. The boys, who had already been through so much with their father leaving, were now constantly having to adjust their expectations and plans. For example, last summer, we tried to plan a trip to a nearby water park. The boys had been looking forward to it for months, saving their allowance to buy souvenirs and talking nonstop about which slides they wanted to try. But 2 days before we were supposed to go, Phoebe caught a cold. Lucas said we had to cancel because the risk of infection was too high for Phoebe. The boys were devastated. I tried to explain the situation to them, but I could see the disappointment in their eyes. This wasn't an isolated incident. It happened multiple times with different events: a baseball game we had to leave early because Phoebe was tired, a camping trip that got canceled due to concerns about the weather affecting Phoebe's breathing, even a simple trip to the ice cream parlor that turned into a stressful ordeal because they didn't have options that fit Phoebe's dietary restrictions. Lucas always says we need to be understanding of Phoebe's needs, but I'm starting to feel like he's not considering my kids' needs at all. They're young and active, and they want to do things that kids their age normally do. But every time we try to plan something, it either gets canceled or has to be cut short because of Phoebe. I've tried talking to Lucas about this, but he gets defensive. He says I'm being insensitive to Phoebe's condition and that I knew what I was getting into when we started dating. But did I really? I knew Phoebe had health issues, but I don't think I fully understood how it would impact every aspect of our lives. The situation came to a head last week. The boys have been begging to go to a new theme park that opened up about 2 hours away. They've been saving their allowance for months, and it's all they talk about. I told Lucas that I'm taking the boys there next weekend, with or without him and Phoebe. He got upset and said I was being selfish and exclusionary. But I feel like this might be the only way my kids get to have some normal experiences. Am I wrong for wanting to do this? I love Lucas, and I care about Phoebe, but I'm starting to wonder if this relationship is fair to my kids. How can I balance everyone's needs without anyone feeling left out or resentful? I can't help but think back to when I was first dating Lucas, how optimistic I was about our future together. Now, I'm not so sure. I want to make this work, but I also need to protect my children's happiness. They've already lost so much with their father leaving. I don't want them to feel like they're always second best in our new family dynamic. Part of me wonders if I'm being selfish. After all, Phoebe didn't choose to have cystic fibrosis. But then I look at my boys, and I see how much they've had to give up already. They're good kids, they rarely complain and they've been so patient. But I can see the toll it's taking on them. I'm at a crossroads, and I don't know what to do. Do I continue trying to make this relationship work, knowing that my kids might have to sacrifice their childhood experiences? Or do I walk away from a man I love because our family situations are incompatible? It feels like there's no right answer, and every choice I make will hurt someone I care about. Update 1. It's been about a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their advice and perspectives. It really helped me see things more clearly and gave me the courage to address the issues head on. After my post, I decided to have a serious talk with Lucas. I invited him over after the kids were in bed and laid everything out on the table. I explained how I felt and how I thought my boys were being affected. At first, he was defensive, his face clouding over as I spoke. But as we talked more, his expression softened, and he started to open up. Lucas admitted that he's been struggling with guilt over Phoebe's condition and how it affects everyone around them. He told me about the day Phoebe was diagnosed, how terrified and helpless he felt, and how he promised himself he would do everything in his power to give her the best life possible. He said he sometimes overcompensates by being overly cautious with her, even when it might not be necessary. As he spoke, I realized how much pressure he's been under. His ex-wife left shortly after Phoebe's diagnosis, unable to cope with the stress of having a chronically ill child. Lucas has been Phoebe's primary caregiver ever since, juggling her medical needs with work and trying to give her a normal childhood. It made me see his overprotectiveness in a new light. We talked for hours that night, really opening up about our fears and frustrations. By the end, we agreed to try and find a middle ground. For the theme park trip, we came up with a plan. I would take my boys early in the morning, and Lucas would bring Phoebe later in the afternoon after her treatments. This way, my boys could enjoy the more intense rides, and we could all meet up later for dinner and the evening shows. The day of the trip came, and it started off great. The boys were so excited, bouncing in their seats the whole drive there. We arrived right as the park opened, and the boys dragged me from ride to ride, their faces lit up with joy. It was amazing to see them so carefree and happy. Around 3 p.m., Lucas texted to say they were on their way. But an hour later, he called with bad news. Phoebe had started running a fever, and they had to turn back. I could hear the disappointment in his voice, and I felt terrible for both him and Phoebe. But I also felt relieved that my boys didn't have to cut their day short. We stayed until the park closed, and the boys couldn't stop talking about how much fun they had on the way home. When we got back, I went to check on Lucas and Phoebe. Phoebe was feeling better, curled up on the couch watching a movie. Lucas thanked me for understanding and said seeing how happy the boys were in the photos I sent made him realize that we need to find more ways to balance everyone's needs. This experience seemed to be a turning point for us. We've started looking into support groups for families dealing with cystic fibrosis. We're hoping to find other families who understand what we're going through and might have advice on how to manage family activities. We've also started being more creative with our family time. Last weekend, we had a staycation day. We set up a tent in the backyard, had a picnic lunch, and spent the afternoon doing crafts and playing board games. It was simple, but everyone could participate, and we all had a great time. Lucas has also been making more of an effort to spend one-on-one time with my boys. He's started taking them to the library every other Saturday while I stay home with Phoebe. The boys love this special time with him, and it gives me a chance to bond with Phoebe too. It hasn't all been smooth sailing. We had a setback last week when we had to cancel a planned trip to the zoo because Phoebe wasn't feeling well. But instead of just canceling, we brought the zoo to us. We spent the day watching nature documentaries, making animal crafts, and even had a safari in the backyard, hiding stuffed animals for the kids to find. I feel like we've taken a step in the right direction, but I know we still have a long way to go. There are still times when I feel frustrated or when the boys express disappointment over canceled plans. But we're communicating better now, and that makes a big difference. I'm cautiously optimistic about our future, but I'm also aware that there might be more challenges ahead. Phoebe's condition isn't going to go away, and there will always be times when her needs have to come first. But I feel like Lucas and I are now on the same page about trying to meet everyone's needs as best we can. As I write this, I can hear Lucas in the other room, laughing with all 3 kids as they build an elaborate Lego structure. It's moments like these that make me believe we can make this work. It won't be easy, but I think we're all willing to put in the effort to be a family. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I wish I had better news to share. While things seem to be improving for a while, we've hit a major roadblock that's left me questioning everything. After my last update, Lucas and I had been working hard on finding a balance. We started alternating weekends, one for family activities that Phoebe could participate in, and one for more active outings with the boys. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like we were making progress. The boys were happier, and even Phoebe seemed to be thriving with the new routine. However, about a month ago, everything changed. Phoebe caught what seemed like a simple cold at first, but it quickly developed into a severe lung infection. She had to be hospitalized for 3 weeks, and it was touch and go for a while. During this time, Lucas was understandably focused on Phoebe, but it meant that he completely withdrew from me and the boys. At first, I tried to be understanding. I sent supportive texts, offered to bring food to the hospital, and tried to keep the boys occupied so Lucas could focus on Phoebe. But as the days turned into weeks, Lucas became more and more distant. He barely responded to texts, and when he did, it was just to say he couldn't talk. It was hard on the boys. They kept asking why Lucas didn't want to see them anymore, and why they couldn't visit Phoebe in the hospital. I didn't know how to explain it without making them feel less important. I tried to keep things as normal as possible for them, but I could see the worry and confusion in their eyes. When Phoebe was finally released from the hospital, I thought things would get better. I gave Lucas a few days to settle Phoebe back at home, then reached out to see when we could all get together. But instead of the reunion I was hoping for, Lucas called me and said he needed to take a break from our relationship. He said Phoebe's hospitalization made him realize he couldn't fully commit to a relationship right now and that he needed to focus all his energy on her. He talked about how scared he'd been of losing her, and how it made him reevaluate his priorities. I was shocked and hurt. I tried to reason with him, saying we could work it out, that the boys and I could help support them both. But he was adamant. He said it wasn't fair to me or the boys to be in a relationship he couldn't fully participate in. Now, I'm left trying to explain to my boys why they won't be seeing Lucas or Phoebe anymore. They're confused and upset, and honestly, so am I. I understand Lucas's position to some extent. I can't imagine how terrifying it must have been to almost lose Phoebe. But I can't help feeling like we're being discarded because we're not as important as Phoebe. I'm struggling with feelings of resentment, which then make me feel guilty. I know Phoebe's health is important, but I can't help feeling like Lucas used us as a distraction when things were going well, and now that things are tough, he's cutting us out. I'm not sure where to go from here. Part of me wants to fight for the relationship, to show Lucas that we can be a source of support rather than an added stress. But another part wonders if Lucas is right, maybe we're just not compatible given our different family situations. For now, I'm trying to focus on my boys and make sure they're okay. We've gone back to some of our old routines from before Lucas was in our lives, like Friday night movie marathons and Sunday morning pancake breakfasts. The boys seem to be coping okay, but I catch them looking sad sometimes, especially when they see things that remind them of Lucas or Phoebe. As for me, I'm trying to come to terms with the sudden end of a relationship I thought had a future. It's hard not to feel hurt and angry, especially when I think about how much effort I put into making things work. But I also know that dwelling on these feelings won't change anything. I'm not sure what the future holds for us. Part of me hopes that Lucas will realize he made a mistake and come back to us. But another part of me wonders if this is for the best, if maybe this whole situation was just too complicated to work out in the long run. Update 3, it's been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share where things stand now. After Lucas ended our relationship, I spent a lot of time focusing on my boys and myself. We went to family counseling to help the boys process their feelings about the breakup, which was really helpful. The counselor gave us tools to communicate better and help the boys understand that the breakup wasn't their fault. During this time, I threw myself into work and the boys' activities. We joined a local sports league, started taking weekend trips to explore nearby towns, and even adopted a dog from the local shelter. Slowly but surely, we started to find our new normal. About 2 months ago, out of the blue, Lucas reached out to me. He asked if we could meet for coffee, saying he wanted to talk. I was hesitant at first, but curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed. When we met, Lucas looked tired but somehow more at peace than I'd seen him in a long time. He started by apologizing for how he handled things. He explained that during Phoebe's hospitalization, he had been overwhelmed with fear and guilt. He realized he had pushed us away out of fear, not because he didn't care. Lucas told me that after Phoebe recovered, he started seeing a therapist to work on his anxiety and guilt surrounding her condition. He also joined a support group for single parents of children with chronic illnesses, which he said has been eye-opening. He's learned coping strategies and ways to balance Phoebe's needs with his own life. He said he'd been doing a lot of thinking and wanted to try again if I was willing. He missed us, not just me, but the boys too. He talked about how much brighter his life had been with us in it and how he regretted pushing us away. I was cautious but agreed to take things slow. We started with just the two of us spending time together, then gradually included the kids in some activities. It's been challenging, but I can see that Lucas is really trying to find a balance. We've had some frank discussions about expectations and boundaries. I made it clear that while I understand Phoebe's needs are important, my boys' needs matter too. Lucas has been more open to compromises, like arranging for Phoebe to stay with her mom or a trusted caregiver occasionally so he can join us for activities she can't participate in. The boys were initially wary when Lucas came back into our lives, which broke my heart a little. They've been hurt before, first by their dad leaving and then by Lucas's sudden departure. But Lucas has been patient, spending one-on-one time with each of them and slowly rebuilding their trust. It's not perfect, and we still have our struggles. Last week, we had to cancel a planned camping trip because Phoebe caught a cold. But instead of it turning into a major issue, we adapted. We set up tents in the backyard, had a bonfire, with proper precautions for Phoebe's breathing, and spent the night stargazing. It wasn't the trip we planned, but it was still special. The boys are happy to have Lucas back in their lives, and they've been surprisingly understanding about the situation with Phoebe. I think the family counseling really helped them process their feelings and develop empathy. They've even started to take an interest in learning about cystic fibrosis, asking questions and offering to help Phoebe with her treatments when they're together. Phoebe, for her part, seems to be thriving with the expanded family support. She's opened up more, sharing her fears and frustrations about her condition. It's been eye-opening for all of us, and I think it's brought us closer as a family unit. Lucas and I are taking things day by day. We're both more aware of the challenges we face and are working together to address them. We've started having weekly family meetings where everyone, kids included, can voice their concerns and suggestions. It's helped us stay on the same page and address issues before they become major problems. We're also making an effort to create new traditions that work for our blended family. Every Sunday, we have a big family breakfast where Lucas makes his famous pancakes, including special ones that fit Phoebe's dietary needs. We've started a family book club, reading chapters together in the evenings. And we're planning a vacation that takes everyone's needs into account, a beach house rental where we can all relax together, but also have the flexibility for different activities. I'm cautiously optimistic about our future. I know there will always be challenges given our unique family dynamics, but I feel like we're better equipped to handle them now. We're taking it one day at a time and trying to create a family life that works for all of us. Looking back at where we were a year ago, I'm amazed at how far we've come. There have been tough times, heartaches, and moments where I thought it was all falling apart. But there have also been moments of joy, laughter, and love that I wouldn't trade for anything. I don't know what the future holds for us. Phoebe's condition means we'll always have to be prepared for unexpected challenges. And blending families is never easy, even without the added complication of chronic illness. But I'm hopeful. We're all committed to making this work, to supporting each other through the tough times and celebrating the good ones. As I write this, I can hear the kids laughing in the other room. They're playing a board game with Lucas, and even though I know Phoebe will need to take a break soon for her treatments, right now they're just 4 people enjoying each other's company. And maybe that's what it's all about, finding those moments of normalcy and joy amidst the challenges, and holding on to them. It's not the family I imagined for myself when I first became a mother, but it's ours. It's complicated and messy and sometimes really hard, but it's also full of love. And at the end of the day, that's what matters most.